In the Bahamas.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network and the
Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm. As always, it's a pleasure to be in your company. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing your afternoon with me. So, climate change and carbon credits has been in the news a lot as of late. We see a new bill that's being introduced that is supposed to position the Bahamas to take advantage of what some believe will be a bigger market than Bitcoin. That's what Warren Buffett had to say. Others say this thing really isn't all that it's cracked up to be because whereas on the one hand, you are saying that you're paying me for helping to protect planet Earth, at the same time, you get to continue to do your damage as long as you're paying me. And so this offset is being questioned by many. So what I wanted to do on today's show is examine this whole question of carbon credits and the carbon market and how it works and what this new bill is going to mean for the Bahamian economy, whether or not this is a good thing as far as the environment is concerned, whether or not this is just another way of earning more money without really making a big difference as it relates to climate change. All of that we're going to discuss today. And before I introduce my guests, I'm going to actually start by playing a clip that sort of explains in a nutshell what this whole movement of carbon credits is all about. That's clip number, the very first clip.
It's like the Bahamas, as we've said over and over again, we do not contribute significantly.
Let us break down for you how this all works. Every time an organization uses a resource that relies on burning fossil fuels, it creates carbon emissions, also known as a carbon footprint. Everybody has a carbon footprint. But when these emissions enter the atmosphere, they accelerate climate change, bringing, among other things, more extreme weather. Thankfully, the plummeting costs of low-carbon technologies and more resource-efficient practices mean that many organizations are reducing their footprints, becoming more resilient, and saving on energy expenditure. But reducing emissions is challenging, something that doesn't happen overnight. And with our present systems of energy and land use, preventing any carbon dioxide emissions is not currently possible for most organizations. This is where carbon credits come in. Buying carbon credits compensates for the unavoidable emissions you create today by financing projects that reduce or absorb carbon emissions anywhere in the world. Carbon credits increase the health and prosperity of communities around the world and combat climate change by financing projects that reduce the need to burn fossil fuels or draw greenhouse gases directly out of the air. Accreditations from internationally recognized standards give you the assurance that the projects producing your credits deliver the positive environmental and social impacts they set out to achieve. Moreover, your credits help finance projects that would not otherwise happen. So as well as offsetting your emissions, you are also supporting more sustainable forms of growth. How good is that?
Good question. How good is that? Here to help us answer that question, we have a couple of guests on the show today. We have the executive director of the Bahamas National Trust, my schoolmate, Eric Carey. Eric, welcome to GPS.
Hey, Michelle. Good to see you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. And also joining us, C. Alan Johnson, critical thinker, who has had a lot to say about carbon credits over quite a bit of time now. And it seems like it's all come full circle, C. Alan, that this is now a part of the national narrative. Welcome to GPS.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. It's about time. One of the tree huggers.
Say one of the tree huggers. Now we're also expecting Joe Darville to join us. He's there. Oh, okay. Yes. Joe, welcome to GPS.
All right, great. I'm here. Glad to be here with such honorable gentlemen, and of course the majestic lady.
Aw, I am privileged to have you three wonderful minds on the show today. Thank you so much. And I wanted to have you guys on because I think you all bring a different perspective to this whole conversation about carbon credits and this new carbon markets bill that we're hearing so much about. But Eric, I want to start with you because you recently appeared in an article in the Tribune saying that the Bahamas can be the first out of the gate when it comes to carbon credits and this carbon credit market that we are hearing so much about. Tell us what your position is on this whole thing.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle, C. Allen, and Joe. Great to be here with you. Let's just put it into my perspective. One, I think the government is doing the right thing by trying to put in place a legal regulatory framework to manage this process. A lot of countries have attempted to trade carbon, to verify carbon stocks, etc., and have done it with less than robust regulatory regimes and ended up finding themselves in some degree of problems. My point is, and a lot of those countries that have gone through processes, trying to get their stuff verified by internationally recognized accreditation entities, ended up, after spending a lot of time and energy, realizing that they didn't have viable stocks of carbon to trade, or they went about it the wrong way. Nobody sold any blue carbon credits yet. This is where the Bahamas has its incredible opportunity. My point is that the government, in seeking to create the proper regulatory regime, has the potential to be the first out of the gate, because a lot of countries have not done this yet. A lot of countries are talking about it, they're exploring it, but not many have established cabinet level committees, have draft legislation that they've brought before their parliament. We've actually done that. Does it need tweaking? Is it perfect? I would say it needs tweaking, and it's probably not perfect, but at least it is a step in the right direction, which now allows those of us who have an interest and a knowledge, people like CA, who've been researching this for years, could probably give advice to the government on how to approach it. But yes, now we have a regulatory regime, and we have the opportunity to be out in front and be able to get our name and our face out there trading carbon. But it is not a quick process. This isn't going to happen next week. Passing the legislation today just starts a process of inventory, verification, certification, and then you have to get into negotiating the price for what and where you're going to sell your carbon.
Now, see, Alan, as Eric pointed out, you've been talking about this for a while. What are your thoughts on this new bill that has been proposed and how it's going to impact the Bahamas?
I do agree with Eric. This is a unique, revolutionary time for us to actually step up into this foray of climate change, global warming. We are basically an ocean economy. If you look at basically what is it that we offer, where we're located with our enterprise economic zone, our transport zone. But as Eric said, it requires, I know a lot of people may be looking at this as a quick fix. It requires being able to authenticate the areas that we want, being able to have it peer reviewed. But what happens now, though, is we can set a standard. We can actually look at being the global leaders in the region and across the world as to the standard for verification, quality, price setting, driving the conversation going forward. This is something that came across my mind going back for 20 years or so to Bahama Rock when we were fighting, and I was looking at how the formation of the aragonite is formed, not at Bahama Rock, but basically offshore in our seas. And I looking at the formula and talking to some scientists and stuff, and I realized that it was the very conversation that we were having was about carbon capture. But also, though, is that when I looked as part of our development process, where we were having destructions of the mangroves and the seagrass, etc., in Bimini and other locations in the name of development, I thought that we had a better position to begin to make arguments from then concerning the impact that global warming and climate change was making on our country. I was looking at a couple of islands that was being threatened as far as seawater rise, and then that's when I said, okay, why are we looking at supposedly exporting these things? Why are we looking at continuously, for the name of development, destroying our environment? Why don't we move towards looking at ways through which we could get value from the national development value, as well as making a small. I couldn't predict 20 years ago that the argument would be as big as it is now in this COPE environment, that we should make argument that we should at least be paid for what we were doing to offset. I also were looking for us I think this is very important for people like the BNT and Waterkeepers and Save the Days and others, is to basically have complete involvement for individuals that has been into the industries. I know the leadership, and oftentimes we change them every 5 years. But those individuals that have what is called on the ground immersive environment, what immersive experience as to what we're going to be looking at: seagrass, mangroves, ocean floor, just even the balance of our ocean. I mean, the things that we have impact on. We have to look at the industries we're in. We support our cruise ship industry. We support the shipping industry. We are transshipment through the Bahamas. There's a lot of things that we have to look at, because we can't just simply be in the position of we're trying to sell the carbon capture, that we have carbon offsets, carbon and carbon credits. But we have to look at the fact that we cannot continue to contribute to the very thing that we're trying to negate.
All right, let's bring Joe Darville in on this conversation. Eric, you mentioned Alan, you mentioned Save the Base. I know, Joe, you have some very strong views on this whole question of how the carbon credit system works, offsets, markets, etc. What are your views on this? Joe, are you still there?
Checking. You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I cannot disagree at all, with my two colleagues there, because both of them are very knowledgeable and honorable men. When I look at hear what Eric is saying, I would have really wished that, in addition to putting legislation to deal with climate change and incorporating at the same time carbon credits in that particular document, that something would have gone out similar to what we've done in the past with legislation, having a white paper, and that white paper could have been distributed to all of the environmental groups, as C. Alan Johnson mentioned. We have been working desperately to care for the environment, that same part that would bring us credits. We are the ones who have been, including Eric, you know, and let me say here before I forget, because at 80 years old, I tend to forget some things. But I am hoping that now when Eric leaves the BNT, he will become the official advisor to the government with respect to how we're going to protect our mangroves, how we're going to actually allow them to expand, not just to preserve them, but also to expand them, which we are doing right now, Waterkeepers Bahamas and Save the Bays. You know, we're still waiting for our permit, something that we are desperate in need of, particularly in Eastern Grand Bahama and in Abaco, to restore some semblance of viability to that area, which was totally destroyed. Well, not totally, some of it is coming back now. But I feel that, you know, somehow nothing went out to environmental groups. We have been fighting. I have personally, you know, indicated to past governments, not the present one, but the one before that and the one before that, what has been done with so many thousands of acres of mangroves in our country. And when you look at the situation in North Bimini, where close to 1,000 acres of mangroves have been destroyed, and not only have they been destroyed, but also they use that as a dumping ground to pile all sorts of machinery. And I have pictures to that effect, so I cannot be contradicted. And they pile all sorts of machinery in the last 2 years, and then they're putting aggregate on there that was dredged from the seabed, and to build second homes for second owners from the United States who will stay in them probably for 2 or 3 months a year. As a consequence of that, and I think the intuition that we have as environmentalists who love Mother Earth, we know exactly how she operates. And we know that 95% of the marine life in northern North Bimini Bay has disappeared. Because why? When they did the dredging there, some of the mangroves, the little propagules, actually escaped, and they floated around, and actually they found haven in some areas there. But nonetheless, in so dredging, all of that carbon that had accumulated there over many centuries, that was all released into the Bay Area, toxic, killing, driving out about 95 of the species in that area, because the ones that we know were there before from eons of time, they are no longer there. And so that's why, you know, I could agree with Eric, and of course, you know, C. Alan Johnson is such an incredible scientific-minded person. I agree with him as well. But the fact is that I think there was a misstep putting the cart before the horse in bringing legislation to deal with that when no consultation had been made with the very people who've been for years striving to protect these areas, not just the mangroves, but the coastal areas, so that what along there, for example, in Parliament, I would put this question: how many parliamentarians even knew the number of mangroves that we have in the Bahamas? Many of them can't even name the 4 that we have. Of course, in other countries where they have plentiful of water and flowing and all of that, they have up to 75 different types of mangroves. We have 4, and those 4 have become the bedrock of the nursery for our fish that is out in the ocean. And if we continue to treat them like a bastard or illegitimate child, well, they shouldn't be treated ill either. We will suffer the consequences. So please, you know, get in touch. And that's why I would advocate to the Prime Minister who went abroad and he delivered these magnificent speeches. He's continued to do it. And I know that most of the stuff was written for him, because I don't think he himself, and I'm not going to hold back on that. I know his wife, you know, she's an incredible environmentalist. And so I hope she pokes in daily to make sure that he does for the country what needs to be done. And we've got to stop playing around with this thing just because maybe a couple of people become rich in the country again and leave the massive population still wanting, like we are now at 47% of people living below poverty level. So of course we can garner much from this, but before I stop this little tirade, let me say this, that we must not just look at the mangroves that are there and the restoration which is needed, the preservation of what's there and the restoration. We must look at everything that is adding carbon significantly to our environment. And we are grateful to allowing cruise ships to come in here on the thousands every year, and they're spewing carbon out in the air, even when they're docked in the harbor in New Providence. They are not using shore power. If they were in Florida, they would have to. So why is it that the power company, is not gaining a tremendous amount of revenue by the government demanding, and I hope with the development of the port, that this is included, that shore power is there for them. And let me say that, they burn the cheapest fuel, most of them, not all of them. Some are switching to a better fuel, but what do you call it? Bunker C fuel, that's basically what they do. And it takes, as you've heard recently, it takes 1 gallon of bunker C fuel to move the ship 1 foot. So you can imagine what is being spewed out in our environment. So let's get all of these things together. I have recommended that the people in Parliament, including the Prime Minister, have a special retreat weekend, a couple of days, with the environmentalists, because we have been living this. We are born within it. I've been up to my waist in mud around the mangroves, looking for crabs and looking for shells and waiting to catch some gray snappers. So we know what it is. We live it, especially those of us who grew up on the island.
Wow, that was quite a lot. No, but one of the reasons why I wanted Joe on here, because I know that we will have differing views, and that makes for a good conversation. I didn't want it to be where we're all singing "Kumbaya" and everybody has the same opinion on this.
Michelle, can I just add something to that?
Yes, go ahead.
Joe is absolutely correct. We must also, I would say for the same time, I agree with him with the 5-year celebrities, and they come and go. But we at the same time must first document our impact on our carbon footprint for everything we do, from the home to our vehicles, to our power generation, to our industries, whether it be the cruise ship, the airlines, whatever it is. We have to look at all of these things, because we can't simply say, well, we're having 2 children, so we could kill one person. And so it is actually preservation, because we become hypocrites in the fact that we are screaming that we are impacted by this global marketplace. And this is where Joe is talking about, that the carbon market could become a farce, because we have to also advocate that in spite of we may be seeking compensation for our participation in the sequestering carbon, we must also still not give up our fight to change the global marketplace, first beginning with ourselves. They say remove the speck from your eyes before you ask them to remove the mote from theirs. And so we have to look at a dynamic change of our environment, our practices that we do here. I mean, from recycling in the home, to our individual footprint, to our businesses' footprint, to the need to move to a combination of what we're doing with solar energy, wind energy, and everything, recognizing that a lot of times people scream solar energy and wind energy, they also have an impact on the environment. So we have to have a reasonable conversation looking at all aspects, and understand that this conversation we have is a data aggregation and exploration exercise, and it must be done in real time. This is not the pen and paper environment that we've had government do. We are now moving into the conversation with the big leagues. And if we are going to be global leaders, we must be almost perfect in our presentation and in our practices.
Now, Eric, you had quite a bit to say following the tabling of the bill on April 20th. You actually said that this is an opportunity for us to lead from the front in developing a legal and financial framework to regulate the potential trading of our carbon credits. Based on everything that we've heard so far, and the comments that Joe especially has brought forward about the challenges that we're experiencing, how do we justify, or can we justify, the trading that's going to happen, knowing that continuous damage is happening right here in the Bahamas even?
So, Michelle, in an ideal world, we would stop development and it'd all be sustainable. That's, however, not the reality. I mean, Lighthouse Point is being developed by Disney, albeit 16% footprint, but it's a footprint. I think what it offers as we think as a country, as we continue to develop, provide for our people, create jobs, it allows us to continue to lower our carbon footprint. As both of these gentlemen would know and certainly agree, despite the fact that we do have some problems in the Bahamas, we still have a net negative carbon output. I mean, we're way below where a lot of other countries actually our size are. So while people may look and see that there's a lot of development on New Providence, large resorts in Grand Bahama, there's certainly industry and industrial development. In a lot of our country, the vast majority of our country, we're still at low scale, low impact development. So I think the carbon trading, carbon credits, offers us an opportunity for us to offset even our minimal impact as compared with global standards. So, yeah, I mean, we all complain that the government doesn't do enough. Those on this side of the fence, that the government could do more to protect the environment. But notwithstanding that, I still maintain that this document, this piece of legislation, is a step in the right direction. I do agree with Joe that it could have benefited from certainly a review by people like Joe and C. Allen and so many others. You know, white paper would have been very useful. But in my discussions, I met with the committee. I met with the committee that was putting this together, the cabinet level committee. And it was clear that they wanted to try and get this out as quickly as possible because of all of the discussion that is taking place about carbon. Again, as I've said, and C. Allen has reiterated, you know, before we're ready to sell our first carbon credit, there's still some time that we have to go through. I mean, we're not ready yet to sell our first carbon credit. We have to do inventory verification. That takes time. So with this, despite the fact that they missed the opportunity for a white paper, public input, there's still the ability. Now, it's still draft, and we are certainly sending in our comments to the government. Everyone else has the opportunity to send in their comments to the government. And again, because there is a considerable time period before we sell our first carbon credit, that allows for the legislation to be tweaked. So if we see, you know, after we do further review of the Paris Agreement and Article 6 and these things that keep talking about, we have the ability as a country to tweak. You know, as C. Allen Smith would know, C. Allen would know from his research and his work on this, there are a lot of snake oil salesmen out there. And countries have to be careful. In fact, some countries have negotiated bad deals for their carbon and ended up just selling it at a fraction of what it's actually worth, or making deals that are not binding, etc., or not understanding that selling your credits for carbon that's sequestered meant that you couldn't then do anything with a particular area, and countries didn't understand that and thought that maybe there could be some alteration, and then they're on the hook to pay back that money. So we still have sufficient time to figure it out, I think. But I would certainly encourage, as Joe has intimated, that there is a lot of public input into this process, and it is draft, so you still have a time to do that.
Warren Buffett, I actually came. Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to show you this paper that was from COP21, which I attended in Paris in 2015. And, you know, there was a lot of hullabaloo coming from that. And I had discussion coming from Paris with the then Minister of the Environment. And there were so many, a plethora of suggestions with respect to this whole matter to do with protecting our environment, which would lead to the cessation of carbon in the atmosphere, and how we could become leaders in that. There were practical things that could have been done, even in terms of producing, instead of running long lines, hundreds of miles in the islands with a scattered population, to have a system in place, which I visited in Paris that was demonstrated. My colleague from China, he actually put in an order for 6,000 of those to take back to China, and they would become so useful. And so there's so many things that the government can profit from when they speak to us. We don't see us like give us the jaundice eye or that we are distracted. We love this country, love the people. I want everyone in the country to prosper. And the thing is that we could make money from so many ways. We now get money from airspace. We need to get money, l'argent, beaucoup d'argent, from the ocean. Beaucoup d'argent from the ocean, because all of these ships that ply our waters and dump garbage in them, we need to levy a fine on them as they enter our water. When the cruise ships come in, who docks them? Who docks the ships? Not the captain. A pilot goes out. And why? Because they don't want a cruise ship to be damaged or to tear up the dock. Why is it that all of these mega ships flying our waters, why can't we know when they enter our territory, and we have a specialized person to go on board to make sure they don't dump bilge water, that cool the engines in our ocean, which probably that's why our corals are dying. All of this warm, hot water going into the ocean, and sometimes they dump the other water too, black water too, they dump. Yeah. And who gets and when they're fined, when Carnival is fined by the United States, they dumped it in our water, and U.S. gets the money for it.
Yeah,
so all of these things we got to look at, Michelle, so that we got a comprehensive view. So I'm glad that Eric admitted that he was consulted by that committee. He's an honorable man, and I hope that he put ahead of that and teach all of these young guys who may have the enthusiasm just coming into Parliament, organize a meeting with them, invite environmentalists, and let's go with this together so that we can get everything possible from it. But let's do our work at home first. I just came from Long Island for burying my brother a week last week. And right there on Long Island, I see someone tearing up about 6 acres of prime mangroves, buttonwood, white mangroves, black mangroves, and red mangroves. My God, where is the environmental person on Long Island to stop that? And you know why they did that? To push quarry out over the water, the mud, so that their boat can come in closer to the land. Who in God's name allowed them to do that on my island, my Long Island, where I grew up among the mangroves, where we survived by harvesting shells, crabs, bunny sugars, and all of that stuff to eat and survive. That's why I'm passionate about this, and I want it to be here for many, many generations to come. Of course, if we can make billions from our carbon credits, but do not let us do it simply to allow others to continue polluting this beautiful spot on planet Earth. We're the most beautiful spot on the planet. Let's keep it that way. We got the cleanest air, and that's in comparison to the others. And then we have the cleanest ocean. Yet it's being used by cruise ships and by carriers for the dumping ground. Let's stop that.
All right, we are going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back on the other side, I want to talk a little bit more about what this new bill could possibly mean for the Bahamas, particularly our economy. It's just a game changer. We're going to talk about that. But we first have to take this break because we got to pay our bills, y'all. So let's hear from our sponsors, and then we will be back on the other side with this whole show about carbon credits and the carbon market that is hopefully soon to be a reality in the Bahamas. What is that going to look like for us? We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, paint, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. The month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have a group, the Holy Cuptic Church is asking the question, are you ready to revamp your mind? This Saturday, May 7th, from 12 noon to 4 p.m., you can restore energy, vibration, and mental potency. Revamp. Live via Zoom or ask about our limited face-to-face opportunities, check out eventbrite.com. That's eventbrite.com. Eventbrite.com to revamp your mind, revamp mind. For tickets only $10 or call 426-1148. That's 426-1148 to revamp your mind. All right, so we are talking today to Eric Carey, Joe Darville, and C. Alan Johnson about carbon credits and the carbon market that is being proposed and will become a reality in short order, in due time, as a new piece of legislation has been tabled to govern what our carbon market would look like. And the Davis administration is hailing this as the step in the right direction for the Bahamas to take the lead in this whole business of carbon credits and the carbon trading. I'm not sure if that's a caller for the show. I wanted to go to a clip real quick. But I guess before I do that, let me find out if that's a caller for the show. Yeah? Okay. So after successive governments have continued to make an urgent appeal to global leaders to decrease their CO2 emissions, that have caused climate change. Environmental advisor in the Office of the Prime Minister, Rochelle Newbold, explains that this legislation to be able to benefit carbon credits would allow the Bahamas to have some recourse against the negative impact of climate change. Let's go to clip number 2.
Just like the Bahamas, as we've said over and over again, we do not contribute significantly in no stretch of the imagination to climate change. But what we have is the natural resources that work to try and balance the atmosphere of the planet. When you were in high school and you did biology and they told you plants take in CO2 and they give out oxygen. Because we are not an industrialized country, because we're not a heavily developed country, we have a lot of those, what they're called sequestration resources that continuously are taking CO2 out of the atmosphere. And as the AG would have talked about, what we need and what we're doing right now is trying to quantify how much of that CO2 is being taken out of the atmosphere by our resources. When a hurricane comes through and damages the Bahamas, we are suffering infrastructural loss, we are suffering environmental loss, and we would then need to understand, well, how is that tweaking the balance between who is putting stuff in the air and who is taking stuff out of the air? If we are doing a great job of taking stuff out of the air, we should be compensated for that.
Newbold adds that the collection and the compensation from carbon credits will all be done through a regulated regime.
We are not offering a black market approach. We're not greenwashing. This isn't an environmental escape clause here so people can continue doing what they're doing in terms of emissions. No, this is all going to be based in science. It's all going to be verified on a global stage. We're not solely making this introduction. We will have an oversight regime, a verification regime that is outside this country, that's in a global space, that's going to be independent. And once we get the validation and the stamp of approval, then we will be in the best position to make an offering into the international market. As the AG said, we are leading this space. I want the Bahamian people to understand we are at the forefront of this. We're not behind following someone's example. We're taking control of this destiny. We're trying to make good on a bad situation here such that we can still exist as a country and we can still move forward as a people. And that is why we continuously talk about the youth and the empowerment of the youth.
Sounds very, very good, gentlemen. If that could work in the way that she's describing it, then I think it's all good. Actually, Vaughn Miller has gone on record as saying the Climate Change and Carbon Markets Initiative bill demonstrates that the Bahamas will not sit idly by and allow the rest of the world to decide its future. We have a caller on the line. Carla, welcome to GPS.
Good day, God bless you, Michelle. How you doing?
Great. How are you?
Very good, thanks, and good afternoon to everyone on the show. This is JT calling in.
Mm-hmm.
I was calling in just now when you made that last comment, Michelle, and it's probably something I wanted to hear. What was that you said? That Vaughn Miller, the minister responsible for the environment, said that I didn't, and that's where it cut off. I didn't catch that.
He said that the Climate Change and Carbon Markets Initiative Bill 2022 demonstrates that the Bahamas will not sit idly by and allow the rest of the world to decide its future.
Got it. Now, one of the things I wanted to find out, to contribute on, then find out from your guests their positions on it. Does this now mean, this carbon credit initiative, by the way, let me first of all acknowledge the contribution by C. Allen many times over the years. You've had him on, and he has been probably the single most vocal voice in the country, as far as I know, to have been profiting this idea to the Bahamian people. So I would call him the carbon credit evangelist. And I want to also acknowledge the government's move now to do the right thing by the environment of the country in particular, and by our country at large in general. That being said, I was happy to hear about this bill for passing through the House of Assembly the other day for one simple reason, or essential reason. It means now that the Bahamas has taken its own survival seriously. Number two, I hope that this means that the government will not be allowing any company, whether local or international, to mine this country like they've done in Grand Bahama and messed up that environment over there, i.e., refusing the Simonet Group proposal to mine 5,000 acres of crown land in Andros. I'd like to find out from each of your colleagues what is their opinion, not necessarily on the Simonet Group per se, but on the government's position, taking a stand to refuse any such economic activity that would definitely harm the country and would not promote carbon credit advancements in the country. That being said, Michelle, I'll hang up and listen to the response from your guest. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling, JT. Anybody want to respond?
I'll take the first, Michelle. Okay, I thank JT for his support. Just let me say though, I know we often take the position that no type of negative activity should happen. And I just want to use the word mining because we oftentimes we take into the position that we are well aware of now that as comparative to what we can do in the future. Let's use an example. We talk about this vast volume of aragonite, and we produce a certain volume of it on a yearly basis. But as we begin to explore the uses of aragonite, the strip mining type environment, what we can have is a sustainable type environment, whether it be vacuuming or something of that sort, because aragonite also has some major uses in this fight for carbon offsets as well as carbon credits. And so this is why I'm saying this has to be a science-based conversation, but just for the sake of mining like we've done previously around the country and just random creation of marinas, etc., all of these different things have to take into perspective. But when you talk about when we talk about this bill, and I want this is very important to me, and I think this is what Darville, Dr. Darville, as I'll call him for the environment, not the doctor, not the minister, but the minister of the environment. The minister in the room here. I'm simply saying is that one of the things that I don't see explicitly expressed or heard is the involvement of groups such as the Waterkeepers and even the BNT or for instance, you have the Blue Action Lab here on Grand Bahama with that's part, I think, supports a core leader. You have the Fika Link Lab that's been trying to be started by even Mary Gator with her concept of the aquamarine. You have Save the Days, and you have so many other environmental groups. Their inclusion as guardians of the environment, so they can participate in the monies that is going to be made for their participation, not for them to profit in that sense, but for them to be sustained as opposed to simply looking at this environment or trying to create another governmental agency where individuals have been in this for decades. And I because what happens is when you talk about carbon offsets as opposed to carbon credits, this restoration of the mangroves, combination of green energy and various different things, and when we talk about the jobs opportunity, believe it or not, there's an opportunity for literally thousands of jobs to be created out of this bill, for the creation of credits, for sustaining the environment. Joseph, you spoke about our ocean. This is where blue carbon, the ocean is where the blue carbon directly comes from. I'm one that has been advocating for what is called a Royal Bahamas Marine Patrol for at least another decade and a half that protects the complete economic zone of the Bahamas to make sure that we are preserving that. But at the same time, I support Mr. Darville's position that anytime a ship even enters our exclusive economic zone, we should have a pilot or somebody on that documents what they do, how they do it, where they go, where they do it, and collect that data on a continuous basis. And so that's what I'm saying, that this is a monumental type environment where if we do this right, we could have actually environmental ambassadors that's leaving the Bahamas to begin to show other places around the world what is it we are doing. And so when you begin to look at the Blue Action Lab, Fika Lab, I think Rupert Hayward is the one who's leading the Blue Action Lab. Even Mary Gator with the FICA Lab here on Grand Bahama, Save the Bays, BNT, Waterkeepers. These groups and other groups within our country needs to be active participant in the fiscal benefits so that they can expand their programs. One of the things that I'm sure many of these groups have is to have the flow. I've always heard the BNT continuously asking for the economic support. Well, in the potential hundreds of millions or billions of dollars that's being made, we must look at their inclusivity and be included in this type of environment. So it's just not one where the government looks to, buffer its coffers, but actually one where the country itself has an immersion type environment where children are taught from the school straight through, and then we do become the global ambassadors. Remember, we as a country, our very existence is threatened by global warming and the carbon impact on the environment, because we are a water country, and as sea rise happen, the very environment and land and stuff we want to protect can become diminished. And this is where, again, go back to JT, the aragonite within our waters can be used as a sustainable tool to shore up our islands, etc. But also some of the, if we begin to study aragonite, we might find out that it can also become a combination of things to rebuild some of those mangroves and other type of environment that we've allowed to be destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, Michelle, I would like to underscore some of the points that C. Allen made very wisely. I mean, he has a plethora of good information, direct stuff, not beating around the bush, with respect to how environmentalists are treated in this country. We seem to be, cast aside. All we do is trying to save the country. And what I have advocated for, now that I am on the board of education with a former student of mine, the Minister of Education, I want to advocate that there be environmental education in every single class, every classroom in the Bahamas. Because unless the older heads in the country, they've gotten by and so forth, and they haven't experienced the devastation that our children and grandchildren will experience in the future. And so we have to prepare them for this, even to the extent as I advocate to our environmental students that we have, they are so eager, and they go and they teach their parents. I tell them, learn to swim, learn to build boats, learn to scuba dive, learn to build huge boats, because as in the time of Noah was wise. He anticipated what was going to happen. We already anticipating what's going to happen in this country with sea level rise and so forth. And so we got to make sure that our children are prepared. They know how to swim. They know what kind of buildings to build. Of course, the way they build houses nowadays, taking in consideration the proper structure. But the fact is, we are very negligent in preparing, and I'm saying this without equivocation. We are seriously negligent in the preparation we are making to teach our future generations how to cope with climate change 45 years from now, when maybe 2/3 of our land mass will be underwater. And that's why we got to learn to build boats. Noah anticipated, and of course he did the right thing. These things have happened before in the Polynesian islands, where they had to move higher and higher and higher, and finally they had to build boats and they had to seek other lands. Which lands are we going to go to? We can't go to Florida because they're at the same level as we are. The closest would be to Haiti and to Cuba. And you know how we treat the Haitians right now. So we may not be accepted there into their higher ground area. And so we got to prepare sensibly in this regard. And environmentalists must be looked at in a brighter light than they are presently. All of the funding that we get to carry out our work comes from the outside of the country. If you go to the government and say, well, give us $10,000 to teach the children in Saturday programs, they look at you like you're a fool. And so that has to change. I'm glad C. Allen mentioned it, and I didn't have to mention it. Our environmental groups should be funded by the government presently. so that we can do the work that we need to do. There's much more work that we could do if we had additional funding. We could actually teach children. We'd get carpenters how to teach them how to build kayaks, how to build canoes, how to build small boats and so forth, like we have done in Save the Bays and Waterkeepers. We had a summer program. We taught young people. We got a boat builder and taught them how to build boats. All of these things we got to do for our future generations. I may not be here, but I could still swim. So even if I'm around for 10 more years and things that happen, I could still swim from Nassau. I mean, not from Nassau. From Nassau to Andrews.
Joe, you got at least another 20 years to go. Now, I know Eric has to leave us at 3 o'clock. So, Eric, let me let you chime in here before you have to dash off.
No, I agree that, I mean, with Joe, obviously the environmentalists need to be respected in any society. Oftentimes, we're viewed as the enemy of the government. That doesn't need to be the case. I must say, so far, I've seen a degree of openness, except for one issue, this stupid research permit issue, where the scientific and environmental community are being sidelined. Other than that, I think that the Davis administration has been open to dialogue and discussion with NGOs in all spheres, including the environmental sector. But I do have to leave. Unfortunately, I have a hard stop. I want to thank you for inviting me. I would encourage C. Allen and Joe to continue the fight. Certainly C. Allen to continue advising, because the government is going to need good advice, not only from abroad, but internally, to make sure that we get this right. So thank you all very much. It's been a distinct pleasure.
Now, y'all notice how he throw the ball in y'all court, right?
No,
he said he retiring and he moving back to the island and things.
No, but that's. I just want to thank him for his years of service in the BNT. We've never agreed 100%, but I say when everybody in the room agree, most of them are not needed. And iron sharpen iron. But I do thank him for his years of service. But I do believe, like Darville, I think he's just changing locations, not his advocacy. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Love you, brother. God bless you. Keep you strong and healthy.
All right, Joe. See you soon. Take care.
And make room in the house in Eleuthera, because I come in to visit.
Anytime.
Good to see you as always. Thank you, Eric. All right, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation with Joe Darville and C. Allen Johnson. We have a caller? All right, caller, let's take the call before we go to the break. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Hey, Michelle.
Hi.
JT again. I just wanted to quickly re-emphasize. I did not get the satisfaction in regards to the question I asked earlier.
Okay.
C. Allen touched on it briefly, but what I was wanting to find out, and I think C. Allen clarified, I am talking about topographical strip mining in particular, and the mining of our mangroves. Does this bill, as it now stands, prohibit or will be prohibiting topographical strip mining, and will it be prohibiting mangrove destruction? I only use the Seminet Group as an example, but it's the general concern that I have, that those types of activities are prohibited from anywhere in this country. I support the idea or the ideal of aragonite mining for certain benefits, but that has to be done respectfully and responsibly too. But strip mining of the surface of all of the trees, that's what I want to see done away with and prevented from ever happening again. So if they can respond particularly to that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks so much for calling.
Can I just say the bill does not...
You want to go to the break? Or?
No, let me let y'all answer the question, and then we'll go to the break.
The bill does not very specifically speaks to that, but what happens is we must look at our holistic development practices in our country. This is why I say we can't practice hypocrisy. If we are to protect this, whether it be the green credits or the blue credits or whatever, or I like what they call it, the aquamarine credits, if you combine the two colors, then we have to take all steps from various different dimensions. And so we have to, even when we begin to consider additional marinas, so we have to do is we have to now look from a scientific standpoint of how this impact not just that particular environment. We often like to have these discussions and isolated from island to island. If you're talking about Eleuthera, you don't have a conversation with me in Grand Bahama as if I don't know or I don't have any involvement in Eleuthera. or I don't have any involvement in Andros. And we must stop allowing them to divide and conquer us. Because what they do in the Lutro has impact on the entire Bahamas. You can't spit in this part of the pot and say it doesn't affect the whole pot. And so what we have to do is to have a holistic conversation on everything we do and every practice we make. And Michelle, when we come back from the break, I want to speak about how we talk about this bill. It could be a game changer. I want to talk about the one location in the Bahamas where this game changer should be birded and reside and actually serve as the impetus for the economic recovery we need in this country. And that location is called Grand Bahama.
All right. I know Joe also had something he wanted to say in response to JT. Joe?
Well, yeah, JC, I'm right on page with you in that regard. I think a lot of mischief has been done to our country in this regard, in strip mining on land and also in the ocean. As you remember, Ocean Key was one of the major places where they were digging up aragonite and selling it abroad. After they had destroyed all of the coral reefs in that area, dumped all their machinery on the corals that were remaining, and then they left. Now the present developers, they have done a phenomenal job in rehabilitating some of the coral reefs, and also they dug down into the sand pits in the middle of that key. And I've seen this with my own eyes, by the way. No one ever told me this. I've visited there and I've seen what happened. And so that is a reprehensible thing that has happened to this country. That is only one example of what they did to our environment, both the land, that key, and also the ocean. The second one is the Bahama Rock. Bahama Rock has absolutely incredibly devastated that area, the harbor area. They were not allowed to cross over the road, go into 8 Mile Rock to continue their digging. And so they, under pretense of expanding the harbor, they went into almost up against the Graham Power Company and into the mangroves there. There was a key that was all mangroves where swarms of birds used to come there in the winter. They completely devastated that, all of the mangroves on it, and all of the mud they dug up. And then when they only allowed a certain depth to go to, when they were expanding the harbor initially and making it deep enough to bring in the ships and also the ships for repair. And I know all this because I worked at the Grand Bahama Shipyard for 8 years. So I know what was going on. And so now in that area, since they were not allowed to go across the road, and for some reason they couldn't get permission to go to Acklands where they wanted to go. I mean, what they've done to this country is just, you could cry blood tears. So what they're doing now, when they were limited to a certain depth, say 50 or 60 feet, now they're going down to 100 and more feet, digging it up. So they destroyed Billy Key, which is a mangrove key right in the middle of the Hawksbill Creek. And so nothing, there's no flow. When they built the bridge there was a stupid design. They did not have a culvert going under that so the water can flow. So all the water is backed up. So we have a storm from the southwest. You can imagine what's going to happen to Hawksbill, Pinders Point, Louisiana, and those areas. Wow. So this has been allowed to happen. Now, what is happening in Andros? I've gotten about 25 calls about that already. And I say that should cease and desist immediately, because what they're doing there, you not only have this sequestering of carbon in the mangroves and so forth, every tree is important. And when you devastate the whole area like that by digging down in there, you are not only moving the trees and so forth in order to get the aragonite or the quarry, and the United States wants it very badly. But how much billions of those dollars we ever see on our in the parliament, in the, what do you call it, the budget? I don't see any from Freeport. Nothing. I took 4 parliamentarians there last year before this last election. They could not believe what they saw their eyes. The type and all of this of aggregate that was shipping out 100,000 tons every day. And I haven't seen a dime on our budget in Parliament. So they're destroying our environment. Who's getting the money? I don't know. I don't get none of it. I don't see it coming in to help me buy food or to help the poor people buy food. So that's why we have so many people at the poverty level, because it is all used by the 1% of the oligarchy in this country. And the other 99% get 1% of what the country. That has to stop. That is immoral, it's wrong, and it has to change.
Michelle, 30 seconds before you go. In Bahama Rock, there's a concept called ghost forest. And if you look in Freeport, you'll see where the water table is destroyed and you end up with dead forests, right? They call it ghost forests. If you go to Andres, we would essentially be giving them consent for miles away from the dig site to create ghost forests. That's where salinity enters into the water table and destroys the entire environment. So this is not just about their profit. We have to change the dynamics of what we're thinking. And this is why, as Joe says, we can use Grand Bahama as a preservation spot. We can use Grand Bahama as a rehabilitation spot. In fact, remember, Grand Bahama is the capital of Hurricane Alley. And so mangroves and seagrass and all these things, these coppice and whatever else, serves as a buffer for this. So Grand Bahama and the surrounding environment can be an example of how reclamation and regeneration happens. And this is where we must have that conversation.
All right. I got to take this break, gentlemen. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation about the carbon credits market bill, what that means for the Bahamas as it relates to our environment and our economy. Is this a game changer that we have all been waiting for? Or is this just another piece of legislation that's not going to have sufficient teeth to make any difference? We'll answer those questions on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS. We'll be back after this.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company. My guests today are C. Alan Johnson and Joe Darville. Eric Carey from the Bahamas National Trust was here for the first half of the show, but had to leave a little early to go take care of some business. So we're talking today about carbon credits and the carbon credit market and this new bill that has been tabled and what that will mean for the Bahamas environment and the economy. And the telephone numbers to call if you are interested in being a part of the show today are 326-0271, 326-0271, 326-0271, or 326, is the other line working? Okay, so it's just 326-0271. And our WhatsApp line, 824-9952. 824-9952 is the WhatsApp number to send us a message, not to call, but to send a message. Again, 824-9952. So, gentlemen, if we are looking at the possibilities of this bill, I'm going to quote Minister of the Environment again, the Honorable Vaughn Miller. One of the things that he said is that the Climate Change and Carbon Initiatives Bill will position the Bahamas to participate in the global response to the threat of climate change in ways which will benefit our environment and eventually have monetary value. Numerous reports by the United Nations and many international organizations point to the role of carbon emissions in causing temperatures to rise on our planet. By participating in and benefiting from the trade of carbon credits, the Bahamas will not be standing idly by, hoping that the rest of the world does right by us. This bill will ensure that science and environmental protection will serve as the foundation for addressing the climate crisis. This bill will encourage us to positively engage with high carbon emitting countries and companies for our benefit. This bill will ensure that the financial benefits arising from the trade and carbon credits will be well regulated, well run, and well managed. And in aligning with best practices established by the international agreements of which we are part, this bill will further enhance the standing and reputation of the Bahamas as a good place to do business. Are you gentlemen at all thrilled that we're going to actually see all of that take place? Or do you think, well, let me just let you answer. I'm not going to put any.
Okay. Can I go first, Ciala?
Sure.
I have a special affinity with Honorable Vaughn Miller. I've had a number of conversations with him about the environment, about the mangroves and the corals and so forth. He is extremely receptive into ideas and suggestions as to how to benefit our environment. And I think what he says there, it might sound like a pie in the sky, but I think if he's able to have his way in his ministry and be able to convince his colleagues those particular parameters which he mentioned so eloquently there can actually become a reality. They can benefit us. And if we do this correctly, if we involve environmentalists, you have environmentalists in the Minister of the Environment, and they listen to us carefully because we have been on the ground for umpteens. We were born on the ground. We're born in the ocean. We're born in the sea. We're born walking the coral reefs and picking up crawfish, etc., like that. And so we know the tides, we know the motion and so forth. We know how mangroves grow. We know how the black ones grow. We know that the black ones actually produce the best honey in Florida because they have a plethora of them. And so I think with the amount of intelligence that we have from environmental groups, and we have about 4 or 5 who are not afraid to say what needs to be said. And I support Honorable Vaughn Miller because I know his heart is in the right place. I also have a lot of admiration for the Prime Minister's wife, Lady Davis. You know, I had a couple of conversations with her during the Coral Vita presentation when the Duke and Duchess were here. She was there to plant a couple of propagules in the pots that we had collected. And we had some good conversations. Her heart is in the right place. And I hope she gives the necessary punch to the Prime Minister to keep him on the right path, to know that this is a beautiful country. We have beautiful people who care for it. We must be involved to protect our country. Whether or not we're going to become a seagoing people, whether or not we're going to lose a whole lot of land, if we keep the ocean clean and pure, even if we have to live on arks and ships and so forth like that, we will still have the best ocean in the world. We already touted for having the cleanest air, even though, you know, the cruise ships fouled it up. We have the prettiest country, and then the cleanest air, even though you wouldn't believe that when you see the cruise ships in Nassau Harbor spewing out their bunker C fuel exhaust in the air. And so, yes, I will support him. I like him. He has a good heart. He has a very childlike spirit, and I love that in him.
All right. Let's hear what you have to say, C. Allen.
Well, I am a pro Grand Bahama advocate. Believe it or not, go back for 15 years, I've said that there will be no economic recovery of the Bahamas economy going back to the twin hurricanes of 2004 without Grand Bahama playing an integral part in it. This is becoming more apparent right now. In fact, the conversation concerning the green and the blue economy, or the aquamarine economy, as Eden Irrigators often speaks of, is the birthplace. This is the birthplace. When you begin to look at the environmental groups that are situated here, I think there's like the Carey Institute, Waterkeepers, Save the Bays. And I cannot put emphasis, I'm telling you, is I've seen, and I would tell anyone to check and explore the Blue Action Lab proposal that's on the table. And Ms. Eden Irrigator will also be putting out a Fika Lab concept, meaning cake and coffee, where smaller citizenry sit around the table as family, where it becomes almost like a way of life to get involved in the changes that is necessary. But the point I make is that we talk about a game changer. We have individuals more so, I would say we have, based on population, we have a greater volume of environmentally conscious and aware individuals who have lived the immersive experience of the impacts of climate change and global warming than any other island, most likely in the Caribbean. And so this isn't something we see. This is something that we've experienced. And even for those who may not even be aware, their input is important. We must recognize that the intelligence of all of us will always be superior to some of us. And so this is the time for us to look at it. I would invite the Minister for Grand Bahama and actually the Cabinet to have a conversation as to where there's going to be capital. In their manifesto, they says that we are going to be where the blue economy is. The Grand Bahama Port Authority, with their Reef Initiative, says they want the ocean economy. The Blue Action Lab wants to create an environment for which they fund individuals that wants to use nascent technology or ideas for the environment, for the blue economy, for the green economy. And so the intellectual infrastructure is already existing on Grand Bahama, as opposed to saying you're going to start over because it was a new discovery from a governmental standpoint. We must look at a going forward as one of inclusion, all hands on deck in the development as we go forward as to what the possibility is. But when you talk about jobs creation, the blue, the green, or the aquamarine economy, just for those who may not know, what has been proposed by the aquamarine economy by Ms. Eden Irrigator is that we take the blue and green economy, combine it with the orange, the digital, the knowledge, and the conceptual economies as one cohesive unit, and has it where people live in this Fika Lab where we say it's not coffee and cake or cookies. It's actually an immersive environment where people live it from birth to the grave. And so essentially what we have is an opportunity now to reclaim the economy of the Bahamas by virtue of using Grand Bahama, by virtue of using these individuals, including myself and others, Mr. Rupert Haywood, Eden Mary Gator, myself, Joseph Darville, Fred Smith, Miss Ingram from Waterkeepers. It's so many smaller individuals. Collectively, we are a giant in thought. That if we just come and allow us to participate at the table, allow us to be inclusive, to be included in whatever going forward, allow us to have input. Let us tell you how you could reclaim Grand Bahama, not just for Grand Bahamians, but for the Bahamas as a whole. We have the infrastructure in place to accommodate easily with vertical building right now 500,000 people. So we can use Grand Bahama as a place where minds from around the world come to tap into the intellectual capital that we will begin to catalog, the strategies we'll begin to develop. Let this be a place where schools from the University of Florida, from and all of these, the University of Miami, and all of these individuals who do oceanic sciences, etc. We have the place that we could put the data labs. We have the environment, and when you talk about energy generation, we have the land mass for which we could put in the solar energy, the virtual power plants, all of these different things. And I'm simply saying that you probably have a few, when you collectively combine myself, Darville, Fred Smith, Ms. Ingram, I can't remember the young lady from the Perry Institute, whatever, you probably have over 200 years of collective experience that you could apply right now, real time. And Grand Bahama is a place that is intimate to us. This is not where we flew into Grand Bahama. We don't call it Freeport. We talk about Grand Bahama. We know where Freeport is. We know where Louisiana, Marktown. We know where Weston is. We know where Flinders Point is. We know all the Bartlett Hill is. We know all the little mixed and crannies are. We know the impact that each one of them can have. We know the seas around us. We've seen the coral reefs die. We've seen the mangrove destroyed. We know the impact of mining. We know the impact of the industrial area. Simply put, this is the best place for the whole reclamation and launching of this blue economy. And we could easily want to dump Nassau. Guess what? Send us 100,000 of your people. We'll house them. We'll train them. We'll prepare them. We'll do whatever is necessary. And this is where this initial money that I know the government is running towards. We are facing some fiscal headwinds, and I know the government wants to run to lay claim to this. What we are saying is that the endorsement of these environmental groups, such as I'm telling people, go and look at the Blue Action Lab, and the soon release information on the FICA Lab. Believe it or not, these can be stopgap measures so that we don't run out and make foolish decisions because we think we need some quick monetary enticements. Take the time to study it. But when you begin to create this hospitality, understand, in the hospitality and tourism industry, there is the blue economy and the green economy, or aquamarine economy. In the hospitality, there's the green economy. Everything is primed for us to actually begin a build out, and the building out of this alone can act as a stimulus. Imagine that we have individuals coming here under the Blue Action Lab, for example, to try new technology, to try new processes, to try new studies. Where we have the deep water harbor, so all around Grand Bahama, so they could just pass out from here to go around the Bahamas and collect information. I'm simply saying that yes, this is an opportunity that I don't think will present itself for another 100 years or more, and we can create the environment right here in Grand Bahama. And I'm saying this, I would challenge anyone who could name me another place in the Caribbean that's better equipped today and tomorrow than Grand Bahama for the blue, green, and aquamarine economy. I'm willing to have that debate.
We have to talk about how this bill and the subsequent market that it will usher in will impact us financially. A big part of this discussion is about money. Warren Buffett himself has said that he thinks that carbon markets will be bigger than Bitcoin.
Yes.
And we know Bitcoin is going to be, Bitcoin is already huge. So imagine, if he's right, and many believe that he is, you're talking a huge potential market and a game changer for, so many different sectors of society, including farmers even are now being told that this is something that you need to be paying more attention to because this could make you rich.
Yeah, regenerative farming.
Yes.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Joe. We have to talk about the money.
It's interesting that you say that, Michelle, because There is a gentleman on island by the name of David Rose. He is what I call a profound marine scientist, self-made. He knows everything about land and sea. He's lived it, breathed it, everything else. And he was on my show the other day, and he said some things that absolutely blew my mind. He said all of this land that we have that's barren now due to Dorian that wiped out, well, the previous hurricanes that came and wiped out the pine trees, and then Dorian came now, you probably would not be able to regenerate pine trees in those areas. He had a brilliant idea. He said that whole area can be planted with coconut trees because coconut trees can tolerate salt water. They don't need a whole abundance of fresh water. They can draw their fresh water from the air. They could get as much as they want from the soil. And he said that can employ literally thousands and can create an industry on Grand Bahama where so many thousands and thousands of acres, even square miles of mangrove of pine trees have been devastated. He said, why can't we use our intelligence and plant coconut? You know how Bahamians like coconut water. They always buy Nassau, the abundance of coconuts. But here in Grand Bahama, mostly they go to the store and they buy those big things of coconut water. Can you imagine an industry that can be developed in that regard? And not only that, but they also sequester carbon themselves. And we could have, for example, out there going over the bridge, going towards the old university campus that were destroyed. Can you imagine all this all of the carbon that can be deposited there because of all the abundance of coconut trees in that area? So that alone, because it's going to lay bare like that, is not going to sequester any carbon. But if trees are planted there, coconut trees in abundance, and can you imagine all the things that be done from coconut like they do on Long Island? I mean, the straw work and all of that. We got so much potential in this country. And even if we have hurricanes that come in, coconut trees are difficult to take down because they go this way and they bend with the wind. I mean, I say that because I watched one of my trees go down. But the thing was that when the hurricane comes from another direction, it kind of makes it weak and then it can fall over. But they take an incredible amount of breeze. And can you imagine all the production and the carbon sequestration that will go into the ground as we have thousands and thousands of acres of coconut trees growing out there? So I'm glad that C. Allen mentioned that stuff about how we're going to benefit from it. It's going to create industries because then we're going to know that we got to plant. We got to plant trees because that's the way we're going to keep the carbon in the ground and stop devastating all the native pines and so forth.
I was just about to say it's ironic that we're talking now about how we have to plant more trees when we see trees being destroyed.
Oh my God, that's
deforestation going on right here in New Providence and elsewhere.
Right in New Providence. That is so.
We have to deal with that.
So wrong, so wrong. I flew over that area and I felt my soul just made a loop that could be done to that huge area.
Mm-hmm.
But
all right,
Michelle, this is why this bill can't stand alone in isolation. I think this bill is going to need some major modification. Yes, we know the government is running headlong to maybe move from the fiscal or from the financial aspect, but we must now look at this from a national development aspect. And I think Mr. Davis can begin to utilize this as a legacy project for himself, because he's talking about something that's going to be for decades going to be a major focal point.
Yes.
And as he said, you have to understand, green and blue or aquamarine is the new goal. You know what I mean? Also, we talk about, first of all, when we talk about the aquamarine economy, which is the blue and the green and everything else, we are now talking about the data economy. We're talking about the circular economy. We talk about solar energy, wind energy. We talk about restoration. You literally have a whole host of subcategories that actually involves this so-called Grand Bahama being this ocean blue-green environment. Then you could add the tourism product. This is where we have the wellness program, because you're talking about an eco environment for individuals. You're talking about for people who want assisted living and who's moving to the end of their years.
Right.
The multiplication processes and the subcategories is almost unlimited for Grand Bahama. And I said we have the capacity. Let's just use an example. Singapore is 30 square miles larger than Freeport. I didn't say Grand Bahama, I said Freeport. 30 square miles larger than Freeport. they have a population of 6 million people. And so I'm simply saying that we're not lacking what is necessary. In fact, we are the most prime location for it to happen. And I think it's time for us to have a sensible conversation as to what's now, what's new, and what's next, not just for Grand Bahama, but for the entire Bahamas. And I will again argue, this is an opportunity that will not present itself. If we lose these opportunities, we're gonna have to do some moonshot type environment in the other industries, because it is just not. Because this is where the world is focused on. The world, I want people to understand, the earth does not have a problem. We do. The earth will regenerate itself after we're gone.
Yeah.
So I'm simply saying this is about survival for us. And so this is where we as a nation, and we as a people for Grand Bahamians, who basically need this shot in the arm. And I beg the minister to go into cabinet and scream and holler and jump on the desk, whatever, to say Grand Bahamas, where you're at a cabinet meeting, needs to be on at least a bi-monthly basis, and begin to involve the environmentalists, those on the ground, those. And let me say this, please. And let me say this. There is no such thing as bad input. I have a friend, right? Let's call him Charlie. And if I have a question to ask, I have 5 things. I say, hey, Charlie, which of these 2 of the 5 things will do? And Charlie will tell me number 2 and number 5. And do you know what I've learned from that? To don't use number 2 and don't use number 5, because Charlie's an idiot. So right now I might reduce my choices to 3. So I'm simply saying is there's no such thing as bad information. That's what data is. Okay, and so we say that let's have a real conversation about where Grand Bahama and the Bahamas itself pose in the global marketplace.
We have to take a break. On the other side of the break, we're actually going to hear from the Attorney General, who recently appeared on a television program talking about this whole move towards a carbon credit market and how it will work for the Bahamas. So that is on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Longevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Track Life, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
It's gotten harder and harder to get your daily requirement of vital nutrients from food alone. Without additional vitamin and nutrient support, your health and well-being can suffer drastically. That's why Z-Radical was specifically formulated. It combines a blend of antioxidant-rich vitamins, minerals, and botanicals with the protective powers of fucoidan to help fill the gaps from lack of nutrients in your foods. The core of Z-Radical is fucoidan, a naturally occurring polysaccharide that helps stimulate immune reaction, protecting you against inflammation and oxidative stress. We harvest this powerful mineral-rich nutrient from brown seaweed, harvested only from the world's most pristine ocean waters to ensure the purest quality. It's then extracted using cold process technology to ensure maximum levels of bioavailability. Then we add essential vitamins that help to protect your cardiovascular and nervous systems and are crucial for optimal immune and neurological function. Z-Radical also includes a proprietary blend of delicious antioxidant-rich fruits and berries. This great-tasting combination helps your body combat free radical imbalances that can contribute to a variety of degenerative conditions like arthritis and heart disease. Z-Radical. Experience the power of fucoidan with antioxidant-rich berries, 8 essential vitamins, and more to provide you with potent health benefits. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company, along with Joe Darville and C. Alan Johnson. Eric Carey was a part of the show in the first half, but had to leave. We're talking about the recently tabled Climate Change and Carbon Markets Initiative bill that is said to be a game changer for the Bahamas. According to our Minister of Environment, the Honorable, what a boy name?
Ryan Pinder.
No, not the AG.
Ron Miller.
Ron Miller. My good buddy, why went blank on Vaughn's name? According to Vaughn Miller, the bill will ensure that all carbon credits identified in the Bahamas remain the property of the Bahamas and therefore will not be traded without the consent of the government. I don't know if that answers JT's question that he asked earlier in the show at all. He also said it will enable the government to create incentives and implement initiatives to support the overall global target of greenhouse gas emission reduction. And once enacted, it will allow the Bahamas to establish a market to trade carbon credits, among other things. Now, the Attorney General, the Honorable Ryan Pinder, recently appeared on the television program A Closer Look to tell us more about carbon credits, how they work, and the interface with digital assets. Let's take a look.
Let's take a step back and talk about carbon credits just for a minute. We have heard globally about the need, about greenhouse gases, about global warming, about climate change, and we've seen it in the volatility of hurricanes and storms. We lived through it, right? And we've seen the Prime Minister on a number of world stages talk about the impact of climate change on a country like the Bahamas.
Indeed.
And most of this climate change is from carbon emissions, so carbon dioxide. So whether that be, smoke from your car, or the power plants, or factories, it's all carbon emissions that are doing the damage to the climate.
Right.
And so under an international agreement, it's called the Paris Agreement, but certain countries and companies have promised to be carbon neutral by 2030 and in some instances 2050. So what that means is if I emit 100 tons of carbon into the atmosphere, I must either have a negative impact of 100 tons to be at zero, or I have to reduce that 100 tons to zero. But I have promised to be at zero.
What does that look like? Does that look like planting trees? Does that look
so like... when you look, that's another great question. So when you look at the Bahamas, let's pull it back to the Bahamas now. The Bahamas has what we call natural carbon sinks, which is they absorb carbon out of the atmosphere, which is great for climate change. The more you can absorb carbon out of the atmosphere, the less volatile climate change is, and the less impactful it would be, for instance, on the Bahamas.
Sure.
So we have natural seagrass beds, for example, that are proven to be tremendous carbon sinks, and mangroves, for example, right. In certain instances, coral reefs, salt marshes. These are all elements that, when studied scientifically, they show you that they actually absorb carbon. And we don't produce a lot of carbon. We produce some, but we don't produce a lot. And when you look at it, we actually are in a negative position. In other words, we absorb more carbon than we pollute in the atmosphere as a country. And so what does that mean? That means if you do the proper science and you get all of it verified, and it's very technical from a science point of view, but what it means is once you verify it, it's valued. The negative carbon, which we call a carbon credit, is valued. And then once it's valued, we can sell that credit into the open market for somebody who is polluting in order to offset their pollution. And so it's almost like a coin. I'm buying a coin because I have an overdraft and I need to get back to zero. It's a similar type of concept. So where we think the Bahamas is we think that we're in a position naturally to create these carbon credits for sale in the marketplace to help countries and businesses who will never be able to get carbon neutral on their own. You know, think about all of the manufacturing happening in China, for example. Pollution everywhere. We see it on the TV, the smog and everything else. Well, that's because they're over-polluting. We have some of the cleanest air in the world. That's because we don't over-pollute. And so that's where we see the marketplace for carbon credits. So what we're going to do is we're developing that. We've tabled the legislation. It's probably going to take about 12 to 18 months to properly study it and verify it. An independent company has to do all of that very scientific in the research they have to do. But where we think it will go and how we're going to marry it back to the digital asset white paper is that we think that we can create a token or a digital asset off of the carbon credit. So we could trade that in the digital asset space through a digital asset exchange and allow people to purchase that. And that would be called a non-fungible token or NFT tied to carbon credits. And so when that is sold in the marketplace as a digital asset, the people that are buying it use it to offset their carbon emissions.
So in your discussions with, these manufacturers, these bigger countries who are emitting more carbon emissions, is there interest in something like that?
Absolutely. I mean, we've had definitive offers to buy our carbon credits even before we could monetize and create them.
Wow.
Now, certainly we think that we have greater value for the Bahamian people in the country if we go through the proper process, do the scientific research and properly value them and then go to the market. But there's tremendous interest.
See, Alan, he talking your language now when you start talking about NFTs and digital assets and all of this stuff. Are you excited to hear what he said, or?
Yeah, it's something, believe it or not, it's not.
Well, let's let old man go before you, man.
Go ahead.
No, just because I don't forget
Go
what
ahead,
I want to say.
Go ahead. While it's on your head,
One thing is wrong there. It doesn't offset their carbon emissions. That gives the impression, as you was thinking the same thing. No, say for example, if they emit 2 million units of carbon in the air each year, and it's 1 million over what they're supposed to emit, all they do is buy our credits so that they're not penalized for those 2 extra million. 1 million. That's basically the only correction I want to put there, because what he says gives the impression that it offsets their carbon. No, the offset carbon means that you eliminate it, but it's not eliminated.
Right.
They're just buying it to compensate because they're over their limit.
And they will continue to pollute.
Yeah, they continue to pollute. That's it.
And this is why.
Thanks, Alan. Yeah.
Okay, this is why when you talk about the NFT, I'm more towards, believe it or not, I believe that because of our environment and we begin to protect it, I believe that we could become more of a stable coin that is actually backed by our carbon marketplace. But in the creation of these tokens, I believe that this is where inclusivity has to come for the environmental organizations, because it isn't government that will create these coins. Let's begin to think of the carbon credits we generate as tokens. It isn't government that's going to create it. It's going to be individuals, and you see Save the Base and Waterkeep is doing that right now. Every time they regenerate the mangroves at no cost to the government because it's international funding, they are creating those tokens. The question then is, if they are creating these tokens out of thin air, as we call it, it's a form of mining, right? What do they get for it? What is their participation in that marketplace? And so these are the type of conversations we have to have. And this is where I agree with him that we tie in the digitization of these so-called economic activities we're going to take, the green and blue and aqua economy. And we can have individuals small enough as they are, because again, we have companies, we have to be very careful because we could be pulled into that concept of greenwashing, because we are now giving consent to continue to pollute. And so we have to also look at the agitation that we will take for continual reduction. And this is where, yes, as a country, we will move towards creating these tokenized access. So we don't have to argue about the green or blue or orange or whatever. But we have to at the same time move our advocacy up the scale, because our life, we suffer from an existential threat for our very existence if they continue to pollute. Because essentially, if we start generating, say, 1 million permission for them to pollute for 1 million tons, they'll simply say, okay, good, we can escalate this because we can just go buy some carbon credits from the Bahamas. The escalation actually reduces our carbon production, and they will just move on to someplace else. And so this is where our localized and our global advocacy must be tied in, and our messages has to go across administrations, because we cannot afford for them to say this is a concept that was developed by the PLP or Mr. Brave Davis. This has to be a national buy-in, a national commitment to excellence in this marketplace. And this is why I believe, and I agree with Darville, that we have to begin to teach this. So this become a cultural aspect. Remember we just say green and pristine for the Bahamas? We have to bring that back. And then we have to begin to look at how do they now create in this environment. And again, it comes back to Grand Bahama. It comes back to the FICA Lab. It comes back to the Blue Action Lab. These are not places that have to go start. These are functioning entities that simply need the financial support to accelerate the concepts they have already developed. And so the mere fact by the government endorsing or looking at what they have to offer gives them the opportunity, knowing that they will be in the process of creating tokens directly in the space. Now understand this, creating technology in the Bahamas that deals with global warming and climate change around the world can actually be tied into the whole aspect of what we're trying to do. So this blue carbon credits, this is more than just the blue carbon credits. This is about creating a new global economy for which the Bahamas will be the creation of this new economic definition that we can actually begin to export to other jurisdictions in smaller aspects. Because you have African nations and other even small nations that can begin to look at how they too can adopt our platform. And then we talk about this whole trading and the digital assets. Well, guess what? If you want to use our models, then you must trade on our platform, for which it will occur. So now we can go and license what it is that we're doing that actually brings additional global benefits from us. Because we're teaching new ideas, new technology, new practices, which will actually flow back through the Bahamas. This is huge. I'm simply saying that what we're seeing now is a global reset. And I see this as a global opportunity for the Bahamas if we think bigger and larger for what it is. Let's create the environment for global thinkers, for thought leaders to actually exist in the Bahamas. But this is where they come to live, play, shop, even die if necessary. We need critical mass of people. So I know the first thing people are going to be screaming, immigration. Let's have that conversation, because we need to have a conversation on immigration. Because again, Singapore has 6 million people. I think only 2 million are citizens. So we are having the conversation without changing our laws on citizenship. Then let's talk about how do we protect it while we grow our economy. So because we cannot have a conversation in silos. We need to have a broad national development conversation. We need to filter out the talking heads and the noise makers and begin to look at well into the future. They say the best way to guarantee the future is to build it. Then let's, instead of sitting here in the past trying to build into the future, let's us as behemoths stand in the future and build a road to us that the world have to travel on. We are poised on Grand Bahama to do that. I want to put emphasis, Grand Bahama. So my first choice is Grand Bahama. And I said, rule number 1, Grand Bahama is your first choice. Rule number 2, when in doubt, refer to rule number 1.
All right, Michelle.
Yeah.
This is so good, because I think there's so much information that you're garnering today from people who have lived this and know it and study it. And, I've been a tree hugger all my life. When I didn't climb them, I hugged them. If I slid down, I might hug them still. The minister he mentioned, and this is probably not his particular take on it, but he mentioned three things: the mangroves, the seagrass, and to a certain extent the coral reefs. You have to realize that every single green tree has a carbon sink. What do we breathe in? We breathe in the oxygen, and the trees breathe back our carbon, and that carbon goes all the way down. It nurtures the tree, and then it goes all the way into the roots, into this panorama of underground roots, etc. And that's the importance of trees. I saw someone commented about the abundance of coconut trees that could be planted. Coconut trees would incredibly increase our carbon sink because they will draw in, because of the magnificence of their whole creation, with all of those limbs and branches and things and the coconut and so forth. They all need our carbon, and those carbon support them and go down into the ground. And so I want to support what C. Allen is saying about Grand Bahama is right for that, simply because we have infrastructure here that can allow transportation, electricity, and all the rest. And so let's get the Ministry of Agriculture to bring in 20,000 coconut trees and plant them where the pine trees will not grow again. They cannot grow there because that area is inevitably, after every 3 or 4 years, inundated with salt. All the seeds have died, so they will not regenerate. Even the section going out to the old university campus, they tried to come back after the Jane and Francis, and now with the invasion, all of the young ones are dead again, which means that there are no seeds left in the substrate to grow. But coconut trees by the thousands will grow in that area, and we could become the coconut tree carbon sink area in the Caribbean, probably comparable to Jamaica.
But do you know, Michelle? Do you know the husk and the shells of the coconut is a carbon sink in the creation of charcoal?
I did not know that, but one thing I do know, that there is perfection in our creation. God is infinitely wise, and if we would just trust Him and His infinite wisdom, as opposed to thinking that we smarter and we could, rip up trees and burn down trees, and everything was created with a purpose. And a big part of our problem, the reason why we are here, is because Pastor Miles used to say it all the time: when purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable.
Amen.
So
say that again. Say that one again.
When purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable.
Oh my God.
So everything that you guys are describing and explaining in terms of how there's this musical interlude between us and nature and the trees and the carbon, it was all designed to be perfect. And we need to stop thinking that we're smarter and that these things really don't have any purpose just because we don't understand what that purpose is. But everything that we would have said here today leads me to one point, and I think and I hope that the powers that be understand this. And I really hope that they answer the call with regard to inviting more persons like yourselves to the table to get your input into this, because we don't want, yes, we understand the economy is very important, and we want our people to live better quality of lives. But at the same time, we need to be careful not to, in the name of a better economy, I'm trying to find the right wording here, but this whole thing of you pay me so that, you can continue to do what you do, and then you're paying me to continue to do what I'm doing. It's like you cutting off your nose to spite your face in some ways, because you're making money, but then they continuing to do the damage they doing that's going to lead to your destruction.
Amen.
So we have to be very careful in this. While yes, listen, I'm all for it in terms of what it can do for our economy. This is a game changer. But at the same time, we need to be wise in our approach to ensure that we are not contributing to the problem by creating this environment where people feel that, as long as I pay the Bahamas a couple of dollars, I'm good. What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen, in our last couple of minutes in the show?
I believe you're correct. What we need to do is suspend the arrogance of our ignorance And this is we often portray ourselves on and present. So, for instance, there's a adversarial position right now in Grand Bahama development with the Grand Bahama Port Authority and the government of the Bahamas. But what people don't understand is that the Hawke's Bay Creek Agreement, which captures Grand Bahama, even though it's not free, even though it's Freeport, it is an agreement between the licensees, the Grand Bahama Port Authority, and the citizens of the Bahamas. It's a trust. It's not the government the agreement is between. It's us. We are the government. And so I think there has to be a conversation now considering where we are and what exists. Let's look at the past and define the future as to what can be done to embrace this new opportunity, how we each can play a respective role, not that of the past, not one of protectionism, and we may all have to give a little. But the goal is if we are to survive in harmony, in one of inclusion, we must have a conversation, not one of adversarial, but one of cohesive, collective intelligence. And I'm simply saying, this is an opportunity that's presented itself for us to have a real conversation. And I pray that the Minister of Grand Bahama will take the lead in carrying this into her cabinet environment, embrace the organizations on Grand Bahama and the intelligence that exists, and let's build a better Bahamas, stronger together.
Joe, your final thoughts.
Well, I would like to commend the government for what they've initially proposed. In addition to that, make sure you garner all the wisdom and knowledge and experience from people who have lived the environment, breathe it in every day, work in it, secure it, protect it, so that we don't become just hungry for benefits from something that we will continue to allow to destroy our own environment by doing destructive measures. Already we have some 40% of planet Earth's surface has been devastated. We need to tell the world that we are going to plant millions of trees, productive trees, not just flowers too. That's the beauty of God. I mean, every time I walk out there and I see what God has given us, I just fall down and praise Almighty God that we could have such a beautiful country to live in.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe, and C. Allen, and to you, Eric, as well. Eric Carey, who was here earlier. Somebody just called, but guys, there's a minute left. We can't take a call at a minute left on the show. All right. So thank you so much for being here. Listen, everyone has a carbon footprint. This isn't just about big corporations and governments. You too have a carbon footprint. So do some investigation about what you can do to minimize that, to decrease your carbon footprint, because we are all in this together. That's going to do it. My time is gone. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being here. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Tomorrow is a Wellness Wednesday, so we're going to be talking about a matter that is important to your health. Make sure you are tuned in. That's going to do it. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on